Hi guys, it's Ella here, and today I am going to show you my updated process for flower preservation. 3 years ago, I posted this flower preservation video and it got 85,000 views so far, which is an insane amount for me. And so thank you for watching. Now 3 years later, my process has updated, and so I just want to share with you what my updated process is. So in this video, we will be making 2 letters and we will be putting them in a shadow box. This is an order that I have to complete, so I just want to take this chance to show you the updated process. The biggest change to my process is that I added a bubble remover machine. Right now I am unboxing the new Airless Pro from Resins. It is pretty much a compact vacuum chamber, and basically what it does is that it brings the bubbles that are in the resin mixture up to the surface and it pops them. This helps me achieve 99% clarity in my pieces with the press of a button. I have been using their regular Airless since it was first released, and I have a larger vacuum chamber for silicone molds. I use my vacuum chamber for much larger pours. I have a separate video where I go more in depth about the vacuuming process and what resin works best with it. You can check that out after this video if you're interested in learning more. So in the box we have the instructions and a warranty card. I will show you how this machine works step by step and everything, but if you do decide to get one, I definitely suggest reading all of the instructions. It comes with some mixing cups to help you get started, and then of course there is the power cable. And the main thing is the Airless Pro. It is packaged really nicely and the machine is secured in there. I struggled a little bit, but we finally got it out. This top piece is where all of the magic happens. You will press the button and it will start the vacuuming process. The button pops up when you plug in the machine. It is a touchscreen machine. This matte black is looking really fancy and you are about to watch me ruin it in the first pour. And finally we have the chamber part. This is where the resin mixture goes. It is plastic and it could be a little skeptical, but the previous one has lasted me well. Now we are in the resin room and I am going to put this to the test. Before I touch anything in this room, I need to put on gloves. I am a very chaotic creator and resin is a very messy medium to work with, so I never know where there are random sticky spots or resin droplets. And don't forget to wear a respirator when you are working with resin. I am going to get this plugged in first and then we will mix up our resin. For this order, we are using Totalbolt's thick set Fathom resin to create the letter blocks. This is their deep pour resin that allows me to pour up to 3 inches deep. Don't mind the mess that I am making in this video. I am trying to get a little bit more creative with the filming process, so I do make a lot of mistakes here. Chaotic creator, like I said earlier. Anyways, for this resin, it is a 2-to-1 ratio resin and I'm using measuring cups that my resin came with. We are measuring a total of 24 ounce for this first pour. Before we mix our resin, I will clean up this mess first, and let me just take this chance to share with you what I use to clean up my resin spills. These are baby wipes that I get from Target. I will add a picture of the product on the screen for you. These wipes completely cleans up the resin for me and they don't leave any sticky areas. I use it to wipe down my mixing tools and everything when I'm done too. Some people suggest alcohol for cleaning, but I've heard that it breaks down resin and that helps the resin get through the pores of your skin. I don't know how true it is, and even though I'm working with gloves, I like to be extra careful when it comes to resin. Now for the mixing, I cut out a lot of this step because I was mixing for a good 10 minutes. This clip is also sped up 2 times because you would leave my video if I was just mixing for 5 minutes straight on camera. If you have questions specifically for mixing resin though, I would be glad to answer them in the comments. Okay, so now that my resin is all mixed up, I separated the mixture into 3 smaller cups because the cup I used for the initial mixing did not fit in the Airless. It was just a little too tall. Once I separated the resin into the smaller cups, I mix each one a little more just to make sure that the resin is fully mixed. I did find some wide measuring cups that hold up to 40 ounces and they fit in the Airless, so in the future for larger pours like this, I don't have to separate them into these different cups. I will link it in the description if you want to get the larger cups. Now the mixing process is done, and before we run the Airless, I just want to show you a close-up of the mixture. I was definitely not mixing slowly and carefully, as you can see with all the bubbles. Now let's go ahead and run the Airless. We will press that power button at the top and watch the bubbles rise to the surface. This part is sped up 2 times to save time, but the timer and what's going on in the machine are happening at the same time. Both of the clips are sped up 2 times. And this whole process was about 5 minutes. You can see on the timer at the top of the numbers, the negative number is the pressure in the pot right now. I think you can adjust the timer, but this was actually really fast. The regular airless had a 9-minute timer and it took the whole 9 minutes for a batch, but right now we're 1 minute down and you can see the bubbles rising in the cup. Just a warning, the resin is going to overflow in the container and I will be stressed the F out. So while that's going on, let me just tell you, as you can see, the mixture is getting foggier because the bubbles are rising to the surface and they need space to rise to the surface. So keep that in mind and make sure that you're leaving enough space in your cup for the bubbles to rise. I honestly cannot tell you how much space is needed, as you can see from my mistake. It is not the end of the world if it spills. We are just going to clean it up with the wipes that I showed you earlier. It feels like nothing in this project is going well, but we are just going to keep going. I let the machine finish doing its thing and then I'll clean it up with the wet wipes. And again, while we are at this step of the process, I just want to note that not all resins are compatible with this vacuuming process and this machine. I have several videos where I go more in depth on how it works and what type of resin works best for this machine and this process. I will link them in the description so you can watch them after this video. Okay, so now that that's finally done, I released the pressure that's in the pot by opening the silicone tab, and let me show you the results before we get to cleaning. Look at that clarity. You can see right through the cup. The machine makes a huge difference to my final results. Now let's clean this up before the pour. So for this project, we are making 2 letters, a J and a P. I have my molds here that I am cleaning with packaging tape. Sometimes dust or little pieces can fall into the mold, as you can see. I just used the sticky side of the tape to pick up any of that dust. I sped up this video to save time, so a lot of what I'm doing may seem rougher than it is. I am just letting you know so you're not trying to work at the speed of my videos. Now moving on to the flowers. These were dried in silica gel for about 6 weeks. I am gently tapping them upside down to get out any silica that may still be trapped in the petals. If there is a little bit of silica gel still left in the flowers, it usually doesn't show up in the resin, but if there was a good amount, you will see little white dots. This step is usually done when I am first taking the flowers out of the silica gel, and I will use a paintbrush if needed. I am just doing this to make sure that I get out as much silica gel as I can. Now that that's done, I am ready to pour. For the letters, space is limited, so I don't send design proofs for these. I just create as I go using whatever flowers fit. Now it is 24 hours later and I am back for the second pour. I left some space in the first layer as you can see here, so that way I can completely seal the flowers in the letter. Usually with flowers, they tend to float to the top, so I always work in layers. For the first pour, I never fill it all the way to the top. Sometimes the flowers are taller than the mold, so I will give it a trim. Or else I will have to sand the entire back after demolding, and we try to not sand as much as possible when it comes to working with resin. Once I finish the trimming step and I make sure the flowers are within the height of my mold, I will pour clear resin to fill this mold up to the top. I am using the same resin as the first layer, the Total Thickset Fathom, and I had already mixed it beforehand, following the same mixing and vacuuming process as I showed earlier. Now it has been a week since we poured the second layer of these letters. Deep pours usually take a lot longer to cure, so I left it for a week. I did make one mistake by messing with the piece too late, so it left the mark. I just wanted to point that out in case you asked. The resin has already reached its gel-like state when I noticed a piece of dust falling in, and so I tried to pick it out and I made it worse. But that's not an issue for this project since the back is getting attached to the backboard of the frame. But here is what the P looks like. And here is the J. Now that the letters are demolded, sometimes there is some overflowing of resin or drips on the sides that needs to be cleaned up. For this, I use a flush cutter. If the letters were not getting attached to a frame, I would be sanding the edges down. Clipping any extras on the side will make the sanding process easier as well. Now that the sides are all cleaned up, I am going to apply a layer of Elmer's glue to the back of these letters to catch any resin drips during the top coating process. I am applying the layer of glue with a silicone brush. Here I go with a mess, spilling glue everywhere. We can just peel the spilled glue off the table once it dries, so it's okay. And any glue on the surface we can peel off as well. Anyways, I forgot to mention, the next step to this process is a top coat for the letters to make them extra shiny. The glue gets peeled off after the pour, and any drips that fall over the sides will come off with it. The glue takes about a full day to dry for me, but I do find that a fan blowing at the pieces will speed up the glue drying. Now fast forward a day and the glue has dried. You can see the back, it turns more like a frosted clear instead of the white that the glue was when it was in the bottle. And any spills that got to the surface and along the sides, we will just peel off before doing our pour. Before the top coat, we are going to give the surface a light sanding. I am using 240 grit sandpaper and a little bit of water to keep the sanding dust from flying around. Then I will clean up the letters with alcohol and a microfiber cloth. A rough surface will give the top coating resin something to kind of grab onto and adhere better to the letters, if that makes sense. The previous layer has already hardened and it's a very even surface. Resin layers can separate if it is not prepped properly. I just kind of make sure that there are no missed spots, and I am not going higher in grits for the sandpaper because the resin gets into the scratches just fine for me. Like, I don't see the scratches in the final piece. Okay, so that is the current state of our letters. Now I am going to be using total tabletop resin. I put this resin into smaller containers for my convenience. I typically work in smaller batches with this resin, but the large containers are more cost effective, so these smaller containers are easier for me to pour and I can get more exact smaller amounts. For this pour, I measured a total of about 3.5 ounces. I used decalibrated lines on the measuring cups to measure each part. For this resin, I will not be using the airless because it is thicker, as you can see, and the work time for this resin is significantly less. It is about 30 minutes. This is real-time mixing and I do that for 5 minutes, so I will skip ahead to when I am almost done mixing here. When I do top coats, I will elevate my pieces on some cups. That way, if the resin falls over the edges during this process, this top coating process, the piece will not end up sitting in a puddle of resin on the table. Once my letters are all set up, I will carefully pour a small amount of resin to the surface, spread it out, and then carefully add more resin as needed. I protected the back of the piece with glue, but I am still trying not to spill over the edges. It leaves a little bump, and you will actually see one later because I did spill a little bit, but you'll see what I mean after we do the top coat and I show you the results of it. I left the letters alone for a couple of days to give the top coat extra time to harden before handling them. This is how they turned out. The top is super shiny and it was a perfect top coat. I don't see any signs of dust on the surface. The light shining at it shows that it is a perfect surface. And you can see how clear the resin is through the little gaps of the flowers. I am super happy with how these turned out, even though my face doesn't really show it right now. Anyways, these are ready for the framing process. This is the shadow box that I am going to use. It is a 9x9 shadow box that I picked up from Michael's. I will be using just the frame. The back will be replaced with my own wood cutout. That piece of wood is where I will be attaching the letters to. I am also not using the glass that this box came with because the letters are just slightly taller, so it will get in the way of the letters. To cut out my wood backing, I am using my Glowforge laser cutter. It is just a simple square and I measured it beforehand to make sure it will fit in the box. There is one more thing to decide before we get back to the resin room, and that is the background color. For this step, I really need to visualize it, so I will take a photo of the piece, transfer the photo to the computer, and then do a little bit of photoshopping. And now I am not a professional editor or anything. I just quickly remove the background as much as I can and change the background to several different colors just to see what they look like. I am not worried about getting the editing exact or the colors exact because I am just trying to get an idea. I probably cannot mix the same colors shown on the screen anyways. You can also do this by setting the piece on different color papers if you have. There are also probably other apps out there you can use. If you are attempting this video, you don't have to follow my video 100%. This is just my process and how I do it. I decided on pink for the background, so I will paint the wood first. Resin is not an opaque medium and the pigments that I use are not opaque, so the background may show through. Painting this background pink will hide the wood and it will make the overall piece pinker. Once the paint dries, I will tape the back of the wood in case of any resin dripping to the back. Resin is going to be added to the top of this piece, similar to how we did the top coat for the letters, so we are going to protect the back of this with painter's tape beforehand. I line up the tape with the edge of the wood and I do this for all 4 sides. I chose to use tape for this step instead of glue because it's quicker and I don't know if glue will peel off easily from the wood. I should probably do a test for that. But since wood is porous, I have a feeling that the glue would just seep into the pores and be difficult to peel off, so that's why I never tried. Now we're back in the resin room, ready to attach the letters to the wood piece. I am using the same Total Bolt tabletop resin, the one I used for top coating the letters. I already mixed it up beforehand to save us some time. The wood also needs to be propped up like we did for the letters. I am using larger cups for this since it is a larger surface. Now we are going to mix up the pink. To get the light pink that I am looking for, I use pink acrylic paint, a white pigment paste, and some white mica powder to give it a little bit of shimmer. I kind of just eyeball this until I get the color that I am looking for. Before I do my pour, I noticed that the pieces were not so stable. I had just placed 2 cups down at first, but I added more to get all the corners for additional support. The last thing I want is my piece to fall over while it's curing. Again, for a coating process like this, I pour a little bit in the center, spread it out, and add more if I need. Both boards are fully covered in the pink resin. Now it's time to put the letters in. I will switch to a new set of gloves first because the gloves I had on had resin all over. I don't want the resin to ruin my done letters. I am going to carefully set the letters in the middle and then do a little bit of measuring to make sure it's as middle as it can get. So I sped up this part a little bit, and as you can see, the P has shifted. But to see where the letter is in the middle, I use this silicone stick near me and I kind of go around the top and bottom to make sure it's about even, and then do the same on the two sides. For this last step, I do stick around for the full 30 minutes of the work time for this resin to make sure that the letters are in place. Once the resin gels, it will most likely not move anymore, but until then, the letters can still shift, so I will be there to fix them if that happens. The last thing I want is to come back tomorrow and my letter is in the corner. Now it's been about a week since we did our final pour where we attached the letter to the wood backing, and this is what it looks like. This is the P, and the back looks like this, where you see all of these drips from the resin. It like dripped over when we did the pour, and that is why we used the blue tape. But we're gonna peel off the tape, and then we're going to be replacing this. We're replacing this with this. So this is the P and this is a J. We also have some drips over here. So we'll peel this off and then I will take these outside for a photo shoot and show you close up of what the final piece looks like. I hope you all enjoyed this video and learning more about the process and behind the scenes to how I make some of my flower preservation pieces. I just want to know, I think this video is going to end up being like 30 minutes, but it has been a month and a half since our first initial pour for this project, so these do take a lot of patience and time to make. If you have any questions or concerns about the project or you want to give any feedback, let me know in the comments and I will be sure to get back to you. And if you're interested in a letter yourself, you can send me an email and we can discuss the details to making a custom one just for you. And that is it for this project. If you want to see more flower preservation videos or any specific projects that you want me to tackle, let me know and I will see you next time.